So welcome to everybody here today. My name is Linda Balfe, and today we are joined by the lovely Lisa Price, and she's joined us today to have a conversation about the work that she does within the heart of Lucan Village. And yeah, we came across Lisa last week through one of the therapists here in Aspen, who also joins us here today, McLoughlan, who is a student of Lisa's, and he has been singing literally her praises, and but also her story is so interesting that we felt the need to bring Lisa on here today and to tell us about the work that she does. So welcome, Lisa. Welcome here today.
Hi, Linda. Thanks for having me.
Not at all. And I suppose I need to also let you know that we have Aspen Mulhern here as well today, who is our child play therapist. So today we're going to have a conversation and looking at the journey that, the journey that you've been on, Lisa, but the journey that you too bring your clients and your students on as they, embark on, learning and singing and using their voice to express themselves. So tell us a little bit about yourself and, and why, you set off on this journey many years ago.
Okay, well, firstly, hello everybody. Hi Linda, thanks for having me here today. I've sang my whole life. I came from a musical family. My dad was in a show band and moved to the UK to pursue his career after my mum and dad got married in the 70s, and I was brought up in East London, Hackney, and my dad got an opportunity to move back to Ireland in 1989, and so the whole family moved back. And my dad has always been in the music industry, and I grew up going to his gigs and to Irish clubs in London, and he involved me very early on with getting up on stage with him, going to recording studios, etc. So I suppose music has always been there for me, and it's kind of in my blood. So I started my career professionally at the age of 15. I started singing with Damien Rice and Juniper, which are now Bell X1, and we gigged and we toured and we did different things. And when I left them a couple of years after that, I went into working in recording studios and with corporate bands. And it was only really in my late 20s that I decided that I wanted to learn more about the art of singing. So I returned to the Royal Irish Academy of Music as a mature student and finished all of my trainings there. And then 7 years ago, I graduated with my HDip in music education, and I specialized in voice. So I suppose just before I went in to do my HDip, the big turning point in me deciding to go and become a teacher, my dad passed away 10 years ago now. So he had been sick for a year and he passed away then within the year. So kind of when you have someone and you lose them quite quickly, I suppose you just really discover how short life can be. And when you have dreams and when you want to do something, you kind of realize that now's the time to just take action. So I proceeded on and graduated 7 years ago and built my studio here in Lucan. So it started off very, very, very small. It was right in the middle of the recession, so I only had 1 or 2 students, but it took off from there. And currently now I have over 40 students a week. I run 2 community choirs here in Lucan. They're pop-up, non-committal community choirs where people can just arrive, sing. They don't have to kind of commit to being in the choir. It's very relaxed, it's fun-based, and it's all about releasing singing endorphins. I also am involved with running the Active Retirement Association choir here in Lucan, and I also run the Coombe Workplace Choir in the Coombe Women's Hospital in Dublin 8. Wow. So it's busy.
You certainly are, and you certainly sound very committed, even though some of the classes that you have, I suppose I was struck by the word non-committal, not putting people under pressure. Do you find that, giving them that choice makes them turn up more, or, you know?
Yeah, I think so. And just not having the pressure there to commit to weekly rehearsals, to pay subscription fees, the you know, committal to a lot of rehearsing between sessions. Some people just find that a little bit daunting, especially if they've never been in a choir before. So this is very relaxed. I theme it. So we've had Beatles, we've had ABBA, we've had loads of different things. Most of the time I'm in costume when they arrive, any excuse to dress up. And it's lots of fun. It's lots
Brilliant.
of fun.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And what age group do you have in I know you said there are adult choirs, but what age group would turn up?
So normally it's entire families. So normally it's you know, it's children, teenagers, mums and dads, grannies and granddads. The entire family come.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Gosh, it sounds fun, and such a lovely thing as a family. Like I wasn't even aware that was out there in Lucan, that families could actually go together and join such a wonderful group.
Yeah.
And bring that connection. Lovely.
Yeah. Now, obviously, over the past number of weeks, the choirs have not been able to meet in a physical sense, but I came up with the idea to do a pop-up sing-along every Sunday at 3 o'clock through my Facebook Live page. So I've been doing that. We're now entering into week 10 of that. And again, it's been themed and, you know, costume, and they're like little mini shows that I've been putting on. So 2 weeks ago, I did a Mary Poppins show. I named it Let's Go Fly a Kite for Barrattstown, and we raised over €1,000 for Barrattstown as part of it.
That's
so
amazing.
it's been all really positive. Yeah.
Wow. So obviously Dawn is one of your students.
Yes, I am. I have the privilege and honor to be one of our students. I'm actually quite grateful and thankful to have such a holistic teacher, and the whole knowledge of the anatomy, and you know, we had an interesting conversation this morning about how when you sing and how emotions can be evoked, and how you get into immediately you get into a very reflective place when you sing. You know, you hear yourself probably for the first time, you know, where you're normally you're normally reacting or responding to what life throws at you, but it's a very personal experience when you hear your own voice, you know. And it can be scary you know, especially at the beginning, but I think what's beautiful about the lessons and learning is that, you know, I heard my own voice in the therapy room as well one time, and I didn't recognize it. But it's important, I suppose, as a counsellor, that I get used to that sound. I get used to a very solid place, so I'm there for the clients, you know. So this is kind of what I'm really getting from singing. I'm not running away from myself at any, you know, it's really getting me back in touch, because, you know, as Lisa describes it very well to me, you know, the instrument sits in here, you know, so it's not an external instrument where I can put it away. It's always in here, so you're immediately connected, you know. And the minute you start singing, some of you leaks out, you know. And I think especially as a very kind of, you know, as part of my self-care, I'm really employing this, so that if there's anything going on in the background that I haven't been paying attention to, it will come out somewhere in the singing. Do you know what I mean? So it's very powerful that way, and I'm grateful for Lisa, because she also accommodates. You know, today was quite emotional, even because I was talking to her just on the topic of singing and how it brings out emotions, and she was great the way she was just able to really talk to that, you know, where somebody finds themselves vulnerable after performing, you know. An important part of resilience, kind of that self-compassion piece, or that compassionate piece, to allow people to be raw and allow them to grow a new shell, a bit like a lobster, you know what I mean? Grow a new shell. And Lisa is so holistic in that way. She's able to spot these things, So we had a great conversation, Lisa, this morning. The body language one was
yes,
brilliant. Yeah, maybe talk a little bit about that. I don't mind just saying what you said, but to me, you know, how I was carrying myself.
Yeah, so I suppose Don was kind of speaking about, you know, the song was you know, emoting and bringing certain emotions to the forefront, and so we looked at the song as an entire piece, and then I kind of just asked Don, were there certain sections of the song? Was it the way the music sounded with the chord progressions that was slightly emoting something within him, reminding him of something, or was it a certain lyric that was just making him feel something at a certain time? And then we went back and we re-sang the song, and I could almost see from his body language where the points in the song were that he was feeling a little bit emotionally fragile. And the body language, so like I've done a little bit of study with Alexander technique, and so I really encourage my students to relieve their bodies of stress or tension when they're singing, and to kind of almost see themselves as a tree and root themselves to the ground and let themselves almost float upwards, but to have a freedom in their arms whilst they sing. And I could see in Don's body language at certain parts that he was almost hugging himself with his arms and locking and closing his hands in front of his body when he got to certain parts of the song. So we were just focusing on releasing. I was almost asking Don to sing the song whilst waving his hands in the air and just having a freedom all the way through, you know?
Yeah, it's about like it's really about the body never lying. You know, the body doesn't lie, and it's something we see in the therapy room all the time. There are cues to say, "Oh, have we maybe touched on something that makes them feel vulnerable, or did we go gently here, or did we?" You know, it's tremendous, and it's all happening with me trying to do my best version of Frank Sinatra. No, it's amazing, really. You know, so I thought it was great.
What really, really jumps out at me, Lisa, is your expertise in being able to, you know, allow Dawn to tap into that, you know, like as Dawn has said, as a therapist, you know, that you didn't just allow him to sing the song. You could see where, you know, where he was almost stuck and wasn't able to fully allow his lungs to sing what he wanted to sing. So, because that's where we hold all our grief, don't we? You know, I feel in our breath and in our lungs, and you know, it's you know, but you didn't allow him just to sing the song. You needed him to connect with every part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose, like the way I see it as well, especially for adult students, they've lived a lot more, obviously, than students than children and teenagers coming. They have a lot of life experience, and songs, I feel, form part of almost our DNA. And so, as you're singing certain lyrics or certain songs, it just could even be the melody that just brings you back to a place in time. And I can relate to that because I sang every song with my dad my whole life. And so when he passed away, there was a number of years where I found it quite hard to sing. And even still, there are songs that students bring to me in the studio that they want to learn, that I have to just really be strong for the first little while until I get used to hearing it again. My dad was a country singer. Some of the students like are really kind of, there's a renewed appreciation of country and Western music now with the teenagers. They're starting to like Dolly Parton and Tammy Wynette, and so they're starting to come in asking to learn these types of songs. And I really, you know, so I can relate to that. There's always an underlying
tapping into your history.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because I think the therapeutic links between music and between what we do, Lisa, is huge. Like even what you were saying there about the example with Don, and see, was it the lyric that was affecting him? Was it the melody that was affecting him? And he probably wouldn't have had that conversation without the music, you know, if you were just talking about whatever it was that was landing or affecting you, Dom. But to have, like, you can say so much through song that you can't say through words. And like, I would use that a lot in my therapeutic practice with children and teens, because especially things with the younger population, they don't have the words to say what's going on. So getting them to sing it, or to write a song, or to talk about their favorite song can open so many doors. And then, yeah, adding the different elements of the music to it is huge. Like, there's sort of, like talking to you now, the overlap between the type of work we do is massive.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I've just started my master's in the University of Wales, and I'll be doing a research master's in vocal pedagogy. But my interest is in singing and wellness, and it's funny, I'm actually working on my first research proposal, which will be the benefits of singing to our mental health. And that's what I'm in the middle of doing. And I'm doing a lot of research, especially with the Sing Yourself Better campaign that UCL did. And they studied groups of people singing together. And, you know, when they spoke to the participants that took place, they were saying that it helped them with feelings of isolation and depression. And it also helped them achieve kind of more an endured, lasting positivity, you know, positive emotions afterwards seem to kind of linger for quite an amount of time, you know. So I'm fascinated by this whole area. And before I even started to really research it as part of my master's, I've always been fascinated, because to me, now I know obviously there's a science behind it, you know, the endorphins and the serotonin, and you've got the dopamine pathway that's happening within the brain, you know, the reward center that that makes people want to sing more. But before I kind of knew anything about any of those things, to me, it was just like watching pure magic happen. When people come into my studio, regardless of what age they were, they'd come in and they would be low mood, or they would have had a hectic week in work, or stressed, and about 15 minutes into the lesson, as they're starting to sing, you can almost see the endorphins start to, and the eyes start dancing, and the haze clears. And for me, it was just like watching magic happen time and time and time again. And I suppose that's what excited me, and that's what makes me so passionate about it, because I can actually see it helping people before my eyes time and time again.
Yeah, and you talked there about, you know, obviously the research piece you're doing, and it reminds me of the documentary that was on, I think we mentioned this in conversation, Dawn, the last time, but you know, Brendan Grace was doing a documentary for people with dementia, and you know, where they may have a lot of memory loss, but they never lost music, you know, the lyrics. So that's where he brought a choir together, wasn't it? On it was a program on RTÉ, and it was just powerful, you know, and just to see them come alive, you know, they may have they may be locked in their memory or locked in their mind, but where music allows people and people with certain illnesses, you know, to come alive. And I think I remember, Lisa, you telling me as well about one of your students without another student, a young child with CF, and again how that improved their lung function. So there's so many, you know, that serotonin release, when that cortisone of that fight or flight, you know, that may be operating in people's bodies, you know, through trauma and whatever they've experienced, to be able to shut that down, you know, for that half hour with you during that lesson, to get that serotonin release, can help heal the mind and the body.
There is something I did notice with this. It's when I suppose when I'm working with Lisa, it becomes very focused on intention. You know, the idea of, you know, the mindfulness approach, where you make something an intention. You know, and what I've noticed is when I'm singing is that my mind becomes full of what I'm attending to, more than anything I've ever, like, I've tried different suppose, mindfulness practices to try and say make my mind full, to take me, you know, to a more grounded place. But there's something about the singing that really you can't, you know, it is very effective in making you mindful, you know, and taking you away from other noise that's in there. Do you know what I mean? And very much it takes priority, and the stuff that you were trashing around, the chatter, that your monkey mind, if you want to call it, just fades away. Do you know what I mean? So it's very important in terms of getting at something that grounds you in that respect and really calibrates you, you know, do you know, that way. And I think I've gotten that from it, which is a tremendous thing for me, in terms of, okay, am I ready to meet people in the counselling room? You know what I mean? Because yeah, it's the mindful piece is very powerful. You know, it's
because I'd say you can't help but be right here, right now when you're singing.
Yeah.
You can't be kind of going on
Yeah.
milk on the way home or whatever when you're trying to get the right note and get your breathing right.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it.
In the moment, yeah.
There are so many things. There are so many things that you have to think about at the same time. It really is multitasking. And when you're studying a song, and then we're talking about, you know, the lyric, and we're talking about diction and phrasing, and then we're talking about timing, and we're talking about rhythm, and we're talking about performance, and we're talking about vowel placement. So we're talking about, you know, even down to the emotion and trying to get that across at different times in the song, dynamics coming in softer, louder, gradually get. So there's about 6 to 7 things that you're trying to manage at the same time whilst singing the song as well, you know. But it really develops your multitasking skills, I think for one.
And trying to integrate that all into yourself. That's because as you're saying that, Lisa, my head is going, oh Jesus, where are you in all of that? And you're trying to manage, you know, and trying to
like for
yeah, it's like hang on a second here. But it's like, but yes, we're trying to integrate all the philosophies, all the theories, all the kind of techniques, but using, as you said, just using what's inside of you and allowing that to just come out.
There's a strange dynamic going on that I'm beginning to realize. It really is a battle of fear and hope when you're up performing, because you're terrified. You're terrified, and then you get to the point, well, I know where I want to go, so hope comes to your aid, you know. So you have this battle going on between fear and hope, and eventually hope takes over. Do you know what I mean? Which we meet that every day.
I was just thinking that.
Such a metaphor for coming into the therapy room. It's the fear and the hope.
Yeah.
Bringing in, it's the hope that brings you there and brings you through. And
yeah,
you're always looking for in the story as well. Yeah, the hope.
Because the fear is about, you know, I hope it doesn't fall apart when I'm doing this. The fear helping you survive, but then on the other side, you know, knowing what to do with that fear and knowing what way to go is the hope piece, you know. And it's great. It's very inclusive.
And like that's what Lisa does. Lisa helps you develop that kind of, you know, kind of creates that path for you to you know, make that song your own, you know. And like what we do, as we keep saying, you know, here in Aspen, you know, we create that space to allow clients to, you know, tell their story, you know, and whether they want to bring in a piece of music or whatever, but to tell their story, you know, around the journey that they've been on. And help them, you know, see all the different parts of themselves in that story, you know, of the different ways of being, different behaviors they've used, or the different masks that they've worn in different times. And, you know, so it's helping them to just to find themselves during that.
Yeah, like a lot of students that come to me as well, you know, they obviously there's different levels of singers that would come, and some are stronger singers than others, and some you know, students come just to develop confidence, and some younger students have been brought to me because they're quite shy in school, and the parents feel that singing will help them, you know, build confidence. So there's all these different elements, and it always works. Like I've seen parents come to me and their children would never put their hand up in class, would never speak out, and now they're integrating with making friends, standing up and speaking in front of the class. The teacher is coming to the parents saying there's such a change. Even with, you know, teenagers who might be going through a little bit of, you know, just teenagers, you know, when they're kind of becoming teenagers, I suppose, and there's all these doubts in their mind, but it helps them develop confidence, you know, within their own minds that they're good enough to do things. And I suppose with developing singers too, like that, what you spoke about with hope, it's giving them hope, and it's not giving them any false belief that they're going to be, you know, duetting with Beyonce or Lady Gaga anytime soon, but it's just about that, you know, you can do it, and your voice is a muscle, and we're going to develop that muscle, and you will get better. Your voice will become stronger, and, you know, there's hope that they can move on all the time and develop a skill that they all, you know, the students come because they have a love for singing, they want to be better, they want to develop it. And so, you know, I always lead with the hope line as well, that, you know, we will get there, you know, you know, but we will work hard and we'll practice hard, but, you know, your voice will get better. It's like going to the gym, it's a muscle. Once you start exercising it and working it out, you will get stronger, and you know, you'll reap the benefits. Yeah.
Lisa, I suppose as I sit listening to you, you know, you've been on a journey for the last so many years. You were born into music, and, you know, and your father being part of the show bands, and you've, I suppose, it's just when you said there about the Beyonce kids today all want to be this professional singer and so on. I'm sure during your journey of, you know, being part of the bands and, you know, and seeing your father go through you know, the different challenges that music can bring into people's lives, that there were some dark times.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's
because it's not as glamorous as, you know, as what people think.
It's by no means secure.
Yeah.
You know, and life on the road is by no means glamorous, you know. It's you know, a lot of late nights, you know, and you could be arriving in some places and they're absolutely packed, and you could arrive in other places and there's only a handful of people, but, you know, so it isn't glamorous at all, but you develop your craft, and you know, I suppose, without sounding too old, back in my day, it was you went out and you developed your craft on the road. You know, I must have gigged in every pub in Dublin and all over the country, in UK, in different places as well. And I suppose you go out and you do it and you develop and you get better that way, and you learn how to manage an audience, and you are in front of every type of audience. And so you've got to be very adaptable, and be able to think on the spot, because people calling different things that you've got to be able to bounce back, and, you know. But I suppose nowadays it's a different time, because, you know, up and coming musicians and singers, I suppose, aren't so much learning their craft on the road the old-fashioned way, with the development of all these singing programs, and where you go and audition and you could almost, if you do well, you could almost be famous overnight without any prior on the ground training. And also then with the whole online thing with YouTube and YouTube sensations, like that's how Billie Eilish became where she is today. There's so many. So I suppose it's a different setup now, and at least when you're out there and you're doing on the ground work and you're gigging for years, you've built up a resistance over time for the music industry, because it's not an easy industry to be in, especially for young people. So especially for some of my singers who I feel are going to go down that road as a career, I try and give them as much advice as possible, and you know, I encourage them to go to as many auditions as possible. And of course, the auditions, you know, you'll have one successful one and you'll have 9 unsuccessful ones, and they always come back to me and they're down and they're upset and they feel that they could have done better. But it's about turning a negative into a positive, and always, you know, it's another kind of notch in the belt, as they say. It's like going for interviews. The more interviews you do, the better you become at interviews. And so that's the approach I take with my students. The more of these you do, and that, you know, you're not going to get every single audition that you go for. That's the industry.
Yeah, and it's almost preparing them for setbacks, because that's all part of life too, isn't it? You know, we don't always get what we want, you know, and there's a lyric in that too. But, you know, but we don't, and it's how, you know, through your life experience, you know, and the resilience that you developed and the thick neck that you developed to just be able to sing in front of one person or 1,000 people or whatever, but to know that, you know, not everybody's going to like you, and it really is whatever is hot topic at the time, or whether it's country and western or whatever the marketing industry is trying to promote at the time. And I suppose we live in a society today that is very commercialized. It's very, it's all about, I suppose, very ego driven, you know. And I think, you know, the things that, you know, all the things that we're used to, that people are used to, that shows their, you know, their status, whether through their voice or through their car or whatever, or through their job. You know, I think COVID-19 has made, you know, so many people to sit back and reflect on, you know, their purpose, their meaning, you know, and that it doesn't matter what status you come from, you know, we've been stripped right back over the last number of weeks, and we've all been made to look at who we are during this time. And I know in the work that you do, Lisa, you're trying to help your students, and that Dawn has, you know, has described today, you know, how he's connecting more with himself through the journey in singing from his heart. With I suppose that's choosing your instrument, but I suppose for some people, you know, they've lost so much over the last number of months, whether loss of a loved one, loss of a job, loss of, you know, a home. You know, there's a lot going on at the moment. I suppose that's what I'm trying to.
And I think with the singing, you're actually given permission to connect with yourself. That's the beauty of it, really, because people will allow that. Now, if I was to sit here and connect with myself in front of somebody in conversation, it might be a little bit uncomfortable. But if I sang a song, you know, they're a little bit more accommodating. You know what I mean? That, okay, well, he's singing, so he has permission to connect. You know, that way. So there's something about the arts. I think that's an important thing to say how important the arts are in terms of giving people permission to talk about those difficult things. You know what I mean? I suppose way back in, says Shakespeare, theatre was there for that purpose, for the awkward conversations to be expressed, and everybody was in agreement. Well, that's where that belongs, you know. So I think it's important that, you know, awkward conversations have to be heard. So how do you give people permission to do it? Well, music does, you know. But it was interesting talking about the resilience piece, Lisa, because I do think about that in terms of today's society, and it's the instant gratification thing. Do they build up the layers, the rings of the tree kind of thing, to get this, you know, to give them the strength to withstand the tougher times? I don't know what you would think about that. You know, do you find the students give up quicker than they might have in the past in today's society? Do they get very downhearted in a catastrophic way because everything is such an instant gratification?
I suppose when certain, you know, when students get to a certain age. So I would, you know, we would work on material in class, and then I would feature students on my page. And, you know, the way I see that is it's a way of performing. And so we work really hard in class, and then they do a really nice, you know, performance video, and we post it, and there's always such positive feedback. And, you know, it's a learning curve for them. And also with the videos, they're able to analyze themselves, and we have discussions on, you know, the way they may have sounded in certain parts of the songs, or things they may have done performance wise. And so I'm teaching them how to self-analyze, and in fact almost self-teach when they're at home. I'm asking them to mind map when they're watching back their performances, to see what they like, what you know, what the strengths, maybe the weaknesses. But I always try and keep it on a positive note, so that we're always taking something positive. And yeah, so that kind of is a gradual thing with the students, and it helps to build them up slowly and build up their confidence slowly, because the feedback is always so amazing that they just, the next time I see them in class then, or even online, they're so elated by, they almost feel like they've been a celebrity for the past number of days, because it's just been all about them. And it's a great way of boosting my students' morale, especially at the moment. I featured a series on my page called Songs for These Times, a series of uplifting and inspirational songs to help to entertain people at these times. And so, you know, my students have been recording from home, and I've been doing nice edits on them and posting them. Response has been great, you know. So it's just, I suppose, about just keeping a positive note all the time. Yeah.
And I think for them, having the connection with you, the place to do that safely, like, it's like, going back to what you were saying earlier about having the 9 awful auditions, and if they have an audition that didn't go their way, and they can come back to you and talk about what went right, what went wrong, what can we do differently, as opposed to for looking at the YouTube stars or the TikTok videos or the Instagrams, and you put that up and you get the negative comments and you're on your own with it. But
yes.
So I think that's a huge part of what you give to your students, Lisa. And yeah, then helping them pick the bits to put up online and to look at it,
yeah,
analytically criticize it that way, to do that safely with you and with your expertise and your knowledge, just has huge benefits for them, rather than even sitting on your own in the elation of the piece going well, having your professional voice to go with that for them, and to kind of go, okay, how do we move on to the next step safely, is huge benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. I see it as a way of performing. Like if we were doing a show, or if we were doing a stage show or a concert or anything, I would be preparing them in class for the performance. And so we, you know, that would be a build up over a number of months or weeks. And then we would get to the performance date, and you stand up and you sing in front of a room full of 100 people or whatever, so you have to perform. So I prepare my students then for the performance video, which will then be performed as such in front of an audience through social media. And yeah, the feedback is always brilliant, you know, and it builds them. And then they, you know, they're obviously nervous putting the first one up, especially certain age groups, because they're conscious of what their friends might say and things like that. But as you just mentioned there, Aisling, when it's put up under a protective roof with a professional, you know, singing teacher, and, you know, I'm kind of doing almost a post analysis when I'm putting up the post, and I'm speaking about the work and the hard work that has been put into the song, and perhaps talking about the certain things that we have actually focused on within the song. It just gives people an insight into how hard the students have actually worked, and an insight into a singing lesson as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is a lot of work that goes into it, you know, that goes behind the scenes, you know, preparing students preparing, you know, them to be what, you know, the best they can be out there on stage or up on your Facebook page or whatever. It's hard work. It just doesn't come out perfect. Again, like life, you know, it's, you know, life is hard, but you have to, you know, dig in deep and, you know, and learn the skills and, you know, and, you know, do your research and stay committed to
absolutely. I suppose
whatever the
going
goal
back,
is.
sorry, Linda. Yeah, I suppose going back to what Don mentioned earlier on as well, our voices within us. And so a lot of it with me is about developing a trust with the student, because in order for them to really let their voices out, they have to believe that they can trust, and they have to feel safe and secure. And so that takes some time. Like that you could be 2-3 months building up a rapport with a student, and until they feel that they're in the safe place, and then they'll sing and you'll hear the voice. Now up until then you'll hear half of their voice, but you'll know there's something more in there, and you'll know by their body language that they're actually holding it within their bodies. Because and when they start to relax and feel confident with you, which in turn makes them feel confident with themselves, they will then let their voice out. And that's when you really hear what they can do, you know.
And it's exactly what we try to do in the counselling room, in the therapy room, exactly the same thing. It's just,
because we'd often have clients coming in saying, you know, how many sessions do I need, you know, and, you know, and this idea, like maybe for your students, it's like, you know, 2-3 sessions, will I be a professional singer? You know, saying it's like, will everything be fixed by the time after 2-3 sessions? But it takes time. You could be like you know, like you, Lisa, 3 months trying to build a trusting relationship with a client, you know, and you know by them that they're not even connected to the whole part of themselves, because they're so disconnected on so many levels. They'll tell the story, but they're not feeling it.
Yeah.
So it's until they get to that point in telling that story, like singing the song many times, until it actually clicks. I say, oh my God, I can't believe I've been using those words for so long and not feeling them. You know?
Yeah.
So it's just sitting and practicing, and, you know, and just trying to be as patient and to be able to hold them.
Yeah, because I think for a lot of clients, they're singing other people's songs.
Oh, absolutely.
They're
wonderful.
you know, they're using everybody else's scripts.
Yeah.
And for the first time ever, they start to hear their own, what they want to say for themselves. And it's terrifying, but also a beautiful thing, you know. And I think even that can be scary, but for the first, I suppose what we're trying to do really is to generate that hope that it's okay in a place of safety to start hearing yourself for the very first time. And I think that's really what we're trying to do, and you're trying to do that too, Lisa, and it's just, it's huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Lisa, what would you say to anybody that would like to, you know, take part or to join, whether individually, you know, to embark on singing lessons, or to, you know, or any of your classes that you have going at the moment? You know, how can they contact you? Or
Yeah, well, I have a Facebook page, Lisa Price Singing and Music School, and so everything that just be happening within the pop-up choirs and different things like that, it's all advertised there. For the past number of Sundays, and these will continue indefinitely, there have been free pop-up sing-alongs on my Facebook page at 3 o'clock, and as I mentioned earlier on, they've all been themed. This coming Sunday is Greece, with full costume and props and staging and the whole shebang. I'm encouraging people to get dressed up in their pink ladies costumes, and for the lads to get dressed up as T-birds at home, for the entire family to sing, to dance, to release those singing endorphins and just feel good. And yeah, so they've been running free. This is week 10 now.
Wow.
And so it's just 3 o'clock on my Facebook page. You just turn it on and up I'll pop as Olivia Newton-John this week.
Love it, love it.
Linda's already got her Pink Lady shirt on. You're ready to go.
I'm in it. Love it.
Yeah. And then obviously if people want to get involved in, you know, actually coming in a physical sense after this is all over to my community choirs, again, they just look out on my page, follow my page, and you'll see everything come up, all the advertisements for things that I'm doing within the community, and they're open to everybody. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
And do you have a mobile number that maybe you could just even call out, that, you know, people can call you on?
Yeah, my mobile number is 087 980 2406.
Fantastic. Well, Lisa, it's absolutely been such a pleasure, you know, having such a wonderful conversation with you, and obviously with Aisling and Dawn, and listening to the work that you do within Lucan, and obviously people from obviously many parts of the world that do link in online to join the fun and talents that you share, and certainly you can see the benefits, and I can see from Dawn, and I can almost see him being dressed up now this Sunday as a T-bird. You can see the leather jacket. But it's, thank you for, you know, joining us here today and telling us about the work that you do. And yeah.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Lisa.